Welcome to the Empowered Working Mom Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Jocelyn Young. Our mission here is to amplify the stories of all moms so that they can be seen, heard, and supported in their motherhood journey, regardless of whether they're balancing motherhood with an external career or choosing to dedicate themselves fully to motherhood. We believe here that everyone has a unique story, and we found that storytelling is an impactful way to connect and learn from one another. Because sharing and listening to each other's stories makes us feel connected, supported, and inspired. We're excited to bring you diverse stories from fellow working moms like you. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and listen in to today's story to feel acknowledged, encouraged, and most importantly, that you're not alone in your experience as a working mom. Hey there, mamas. I am loving being the host of this podcast. One, just because I absolutely love being able to connect with incredible mamas out there around the world to hear their stories. And I was super excited when I got to connect with today's guest, Gissel Tapper. We connected during a virtual event I was speaking at last year. And you know how when you have those moments when you meet someone and just instantly feel their warmth and wisdom? Well, that's exactly how I felt talking with Gissel, who joins us from the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Isn't that cool? We connected across the world here on the podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about Gissel. She is the proud mom of two amazing daughters, ages 24 and 13. And let me tell you, her perspective on parenting across different stages of life is just pure gold. You're going to want to take notes here. She's one of those inspiring women who doesn't just face challenges. She embraces them with open arms and with such a genuine enthusiasm. You'll be able to hear it in her voice during our conversation. And her approach to life and motherhood is refreshingly real. She's resilient, growth-minded, and when she commits to something, she follows through with it with her whole heart. So in this episode, Gissel really opens up about her journey, including a really brave move, moving from the UK to the UAE, and she shares how she's managed to keep her children's well-being at the center of it all through that transition. So whether you're juggling a career with motherhood, and let's be honest, sometimes feeling like you're dropping all the balls here, or you're simply looking for some wisdom about raising confident, well-adjusted kids, you're going to find so much value in Gissel's story today. So are you ready? Because we are literally having a real heart-to-heart conversation about the ups and downs of working motherhood, the power of trusting yourself and the journey, even when you can't see the whole path ahead, and those really precious moments that make all the late nights and early mornings worth it. So, as I always say, grab your favorite beverage, find a quiet corner, and let's dive in today's episode. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm so excited to welcome our guest here on the Empowered Working Mom Revolution podcast today. We have Gissel Tapper. Welcome to the show, Gissel.
Thank you so much, Joycelyn. Such a pleasure being here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear your story and get to know you a little bit more because Gissel and I connected about maybe a month ago, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had been part of a online conference called Badass Moms. Shout out to
Yeah.
Mallory. And then we connected through there. And I'm super excited just to hear your story, Gissel. So thank you for being here. And before we actually start in, could you let us know as a mom, like how many kids you have and their ages?
So I
Okay.
am a mom of two girls, and the eldest, is 24, and the youngest is 13. So I have had the pleasure of doing um, motherhood twice because they were both They were both very different. And of course, with the 11-year gap, it made me have to relearn what it was to be pregnant and, giving birth. And the teenage years are different to my eldest daughter. Um, but yes, and I think because of me being a girl mom, I'm their biggest advocate. So I always think, how can I challenge them? How can I get them to think in a different way? Because, I always want them to be not a better version of myself, but surely a better version of themselves as they grow up. And
Oh,
of course, we know the world is busy. There's
yeah,
lots happening. There's lots to navigate.
yeah, yeah,
And so that's sort of how I see myself. Girl mom, who's an advocate for her
yeah.
girls and um, have the beauty of young adulthood and teen experiences.
All in one, all in one. And the reason why I asked you in terms of your season, because I think you're the first guest that has two grown like adulthood and one in teen. That's a unique like experience that I
It
don't think I've
is.
had a guest here. So I was like, can you let us know? Because this is fascinating, like fascinating. So I'm super excited just to hear first, starting off with like a significant moment in your life. Like what significant moment have you experienced that really has influenced you, right? Whether that's personal or professional. And then like what are the lessons that you learned from that significant moment?
So I will start personal because I somehow feel that my personal self influences my professional self. And
Ooh.
I consider my girls to be a petri dish, if you will, an experiment. So I sort of test, oh, not in a bad way. That
Okay,
sounds
yeah.
a bit weird, doesn't it? Sorry.
No, but I love that metaphor though. It's an experiment. It's an experiment.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I sort of test things out with them first,
Mhm.
and then or practice, and then it gives me more confidence going out because I find that they're honest, and so and in a constructive way, because sometimes we can be honest and it can be harsh or it can be critical, but they're honest in a constructive way. So I find that very helpful in how I might approach a situation. And certainly to your question, my eldest daughter, as a young adult, um, I like when she comes to me and she says, um, "Oh, mommy, something happened, and you always say that. Do you know you could have done this?" Like if she went to a talk or something and she heard some advice, or if she was having a challenging situation, and then she'd come back and say, "Yeah, you did tell me this." And I remember when she was a teenager, I used to say to her, "You're like a flower." Because teenagers go through challenges where they think, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not tall enough, or
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And I was like, it's fine. You're growing. You're like a flower.
Mhm.
Um, so I find that inspiring. Hearing her say, "Oh, mommy, I remember when you said this," or when you said, um, just really simple things. Um, for example, that example I gave you with her when she didn't think that she was as beautiful as her friends, which was so false.
Mhm.
Um, or perhaps she thought she was too skinny,
Mhm.
um, or, she wasn't as popular. And I was just like, it's okay, you're like a flower, and everybody blooms in their time. So be patient. You're okay, you're beautiful. And then for her to come back and say, "Oh yeah, now, mommy, I understand what you meant when
Wow.
you said that." And so that inspires me to always be honest with them, coming back to
Mhm.
that point of honesty, and see what impact that has on them, and also to be patient, because I feel like every parent wants their child to listen to them and to hear what they have to say
Yeah,
right away and do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um, And so that doesn't always happen. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to wait years. And I think that also is true for my professional life. I have to
Mm.
remind myself. So even though I am testing things on them, I have to likewise model that. So I
Uh,
think that is one of the things that I have had to um, do as a mom and a professional, model those times when it's challenging at work or I'm frustrated about something. How do I communicate that to them so that they're able to perhaps reflect if they have such a situation and think, mommy can do it, or I can do it too if mommy's able to, or they can come to me and have that conversation. So yeah, so those are sort of some of the inspirational things that I have learned and garnered as I've gone along as a parent of two different ages and
yeah,
seasons, really.
I love it. I love the two things that you pointed out here because it's like one is the words that you say and share with them. Like, I mean, I was like nodding my head. I'm like, yeah, I want my kids to listen to me because the words of wisdom that I share with my kids. And I have two tweens right now. And I'm like, come on, I hope you're listening. Right. Right. It's the words that we say that really does make an impact, and it does take patience. I'm so glad you said that. It does take patience because like I can't even imagine when my daughters are your oldest daughters aged like 24 or around their young adulthood, like what they will be like will those conversations I've had with them, like what will that how will that come to fruition, or if it will come to fruition. And I love that you said patience because that's really hard to remember in the moment
Hmm.
when when your kids are like either toddlers or elementary, or now my kids are tweens. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could tell myself when my girls were young, like,
Hmm.
man, it went by fast, but also wow, there are things that I remember I said to them when they were little that now they remember. And so that's like, it's just that reminder that you said of patience is such a good reminder. But, and then the second thing they said, modeling. And when you said modeling, I was like, yes, preach it, Giselle. Like, because I think that's the thing that I just recently learned is that you can say all you want, but actually
Hmm.
the the most impactful thing in addition to what you say is the modeling part because
What
they're
you do.
watching, yeah, what you
Yeah.
do. They're watching you. And I didn't realize that literally until like a year ago because my husband had pointed out about what my daughter had come home and shared with us about how she handled a friend's situation. And he's like, that she's been watching you, how you talk with other people. And I was like, no, like that. And it didn't hit me that modeling
Yeah.
was huge. And it's so interesting because I was a teacher, like it's all about modeling. But as a parent, I didn't, I didn't connect the two.
Sometimes different, yes.
Sometimes different, right? Sometimes different. So I love that you really pointed that out right now, those two things.
But do you know the really interesting part? It's the 13-year-old that has made me realize how valuable that is.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, like I knew that with my eldest, but because she's gone past certain stages, and I think it's one of those things where you think, oh, did I really used to do that? You don't remember because she's like older. But like the little one has reminded me because she will say things like, oh, but you did that. So why are you now telling me not to do it, kind of thing? She doesn't finish off that part, but the
Yeah.
unspoken bit is, so how come now you're telling me not to do that?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not perfection. It's literally something that I constantly have to work on.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned about your husband because having that dialogue as parents,
Yeah.
their dad and I, it's
Yeah.
so critical because I think that helps to impact the dynamic as well. Having that consistency, having that positive reflection where your husband is able to point out, oh yeah, do you know that? It's because she's heard how you've handled the situation. And it's the same thing. So even so if he has somewhat, let's say, a criticism, for want of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
it would be in a constructive way, as opposed to sometimes, if somebody criticizes or says something to how you've parented or how you've handled a situation, it could be a bit,
Yeah.
hurtful or whatever. But then when
Yeah.
you have that constructive rapport where you're able to say, oh, perhaps you could have done that in a different way. Or
Yeah.
if I know that I've said something out of turn, then he could look at me and say, oh, this was the impact what you said
Um,
had, because then
mm,
he's like the outsider looking in, and then he'd be able to recognize it. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, you do have a point. And then I reflect on it. So I think that part also is also a critical addition to the whole mix,
yeah.
and the dynamic of how the children have been, growing, I guess.
Yeah. Having that outside perspective, but with the constructive feedback,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is different from criticism.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Well, I love that. And I want to hear now more about you know, some challenges that you've experienced as a working mom, right?
Mm.
What is a challenge that you have faced and how did you overcome or actually navigate that challenge that you experienced?
So I think this one, practically every working mom is probably able to relate to this. And I guess you know already what I'm going to say, and it's time.
Now I'm
So,
curious. I'm like, is it what I'm thinking?
no, I think it's just that having that time to dedicate to them, and both in a
Mm,
different way. So the
uh,
first thing is, if I think about, let's say, when my eldest was younger, it was so challenging because it was juggling studies, work, personal time, having that time to go for a walk and things like that. So I actually missed out on a lot of that with my eldest, because I would be, how my husband worked was different to how I did. And because I'm in healthcare, it was difficult to be more flexible. We had set working time. So I had to make sure I got there at a certain time and left at a certain time. And then, of course, the challenges with traveling and that kind of thing. So then they would have come home, gone for a walk, and I would just be coming in when it's dark. So I would have missed out on the walk. So I
mm,
felt like for the younger one, for the older one, sorry, I didn't really get a lot of those opportunities.
mhm.
But what I did make sure of is making sure that we had experiences together. Because I think one of the things that, and my daughter knows, she would say, oh, do you remember when you did so and so? And I'm like, no. I don't remember. And then she'd be telling me the details of the event. And I'd be like, oh, yeah. And I just have to trust her word for it, because I would not have remembered it. But then when she speaks about it, then I remember, so it's the experiences that she's had.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, sometimes I do get hard on myself, as in, I
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm actually doing a good job. Or
Yeah.
sometimes because of the cares of life, I don't do as good a job as I think I should be doing, because I'm not intentional with coming back to that spending time. Because one of my daughters, their love language is quality time.
Hmm.
And then this is one of the things that I had to learn. I kind of started reflecting on, okay, what is it that makes her behave in a certain way at certain times? So I'd be telling her to do things, and then she'd not be as responsive, or she'd probably spend more time in her room, or she'd be really grumpy or moody.
Yeah.
Um, and then I started reflecting and thinking, Hmm. Okay, so is it hormonal? Did she have a bad day at school? Is she having friend issues? Um, does she think she's not getting enough treats? What is it? And then I started realizing the pattern. So when she doesn't feel like she's heard, and because she's the younger one, and then of course we end up being adults. So if her
Mhm.
sister rang and we're talking, then she wouldn't be able to join in the conversation. So then she feels left out.
Mhm.
You know, if her dad and I are having a conversation, then she wouldn't be involved in the conversation because she wouldn't understand the context. So then she doesn't feel like she's involved
Mm.
in our lives, if you will. So she's like an aside, and then she'd ask questions like, did you want to have me? Or just sensitive little questions. And then I realized, so that is her love language. She wants to have that quality time. So then I had to make sure that I find ways to include her in the conversation and actually spend dedicated time with her. Um, and so that was definitely a turning point in how our interaction started developing, because we were able to have those heart to heart conversations. It wasn't a standoff. If I asked for help with a chore or with doing some activity, there wasn't a standoff. It was more, that give and take, that reciprocal relationship, where she was able to just come and have a conversation, or if she started, participating, we'd acknowledge that and give her time and space to do that. Um, so I think that was really a good eye opener. And then one of the other things, the other one now, she likes to talk through things. And
Mm.
sometimes talking is, and listening to talking is a challenge. It's like, oh, I've had a long day. I was really looking forward to going to bed.
Yeah.
And then the talking and the opening up tends to happen closer to bedtime.
Yes.
It's never, oh, as you come home from work or whatever. So then I had to make sure that I was intentional, and also the value of listening, not just hearing, because you have
Yeah.
to listen to what's under the surface and stop long enough to ask the right question. Because
Mhm.
you'd no sooner close the conversation down or close the dialogue down if you say the wrong thing, or if they feel that you're not actively engaged. And I don't know if this is something to do with girls, but I can only talk for girls. I
Yeah.
suspect that there are some boys who might be like that too, but
Yeah.
children in general, um, I feel like they just like to have boundaries and they like to have time.
Mhm.
Um, and then, so yeah, so I really had to start being intentional, um, and making that space. And then the third thing I would say is coming back to having that strong collaboration with your husband, as their dad, and making sure that the really big things you agree on, so that they can understand and get that consistent language.
Yeah.
And when I say big things, it would be, I don't know, let's say the big topical one, social media.
Oh, yeah.
At what age and how much
Mhm.
exposure do you get to screen time, and
Mhm.
are you doing your homework, and what boundaries are we going to set for that, versus are you watching TV, or are you playing a game, or are you reading too much and not doing your homework, though reading is good, finding the
Yes.
balance.
Mhm.
um just those things, uh, make sure that we agree on, so that there's no question in, okay, can I just go to mommy and tell her this, and then I go to
Mm.
daddy and tell him that, and then I'll just get through with a little loophole kind of thing or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so yeah, so I think that consistency is also key
Yeah.
in how
I,
we, yeah.
I love how you identified for each of your daughters the things that helped create connection. Even though the the thing that was the biggest challenge was for you was time, but you
Hmm.
and that is such a common thing I hear for all moms. Like whether you're working outside the home or you're a stay-at-home mom. It's
Yeah.
just like the time aspect. But I loved how you reframed it, because you reframed it in like, okay, I, given your work, your line of work, there's some form of control you didn't have over, right? But
Hmm.
you reframed it to like, what would be most meaningful with my kids, right? And I
Yeah.
loved how you just thought about it in a different way versus letting the time constraint be like constraining even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like experiences for your daughter. It made me think about like, what is it for my kids, right? Like, and your youngest daughter, it's like, being seen and heard. That's very much my oldest daughter. Like, she just needs quality time and be seen and heard. Like,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
I didn't realize that until last year. A lot of things came to revelation last year, obviously, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like learning, oh, we were butting heads. Parenting was so hard when she was a fifth grader and a fourth grader, because she was just, I didn't understand what she actually was needing, which was
Needing. Hmm.
quality time, needing to be seen,
Hmm.
right? And my youngest one is also like doing things like
Hmm.
experiences.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
just have experiences. So that's really interesting, like a way to like kind of navigate through how you feel as a mom when you feel like you don't
Yeah.
have enough time. So
Hmm.
yeah. And it's so huge with the consistency between the two
Yes.
parents. I think
Yes.
I remember hearing that from other people, like,
Hmm.
just remember, be a team up front. Be a team with you and your be a
Yeah.
team up front. And yeah, and I love that. I want to know, like, is there a moment in your so far as a mom where you've had to make like a really difficult decision or had to like take a really big leap of faith? And how did you do that? Like, how did you do that? I would love to know.
Oh my gosh. So it's funny you talk about a leap of faith because I think that is one of my values, my faith. And
Mm,
so I find that when I'm wavering or getting too bogged down with trying to carry the load myself, then I get
yeah,
overwhelmed.
yeah,
And if we talk about leap of faith, try moving from the United Kingdom to the United Arab Emirates to live. So that's
wow,
coming from England to the Middle East to live.
yeah,
And at the time when I chose to do that was when my eldest was doing her GCSE. And for those who don't know,
yes.
so the GCSEs are like your end of high school exams.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's a really stressful time for teenagers, and there was time difference. And I thought, this is a huge opportunity. I don't want to miss it. I just want to try something different. And yeah, I left when she was going through her GCSEs because she couldn't move school at the time because it was
Mhm.
too close. And thankfully, I know we're talking about empowering moms here, but it took a lot of prayer and faith and a very supportive husband. So he had to stay and work and support them through that time. I was on a lot of video calls.
Oh.
I was like the video call mom for a few months because I had to still help her navigate the post school and homework and talking through the lessons. And the good thing is though that she was really good at um, like balancing her lessons and the time that she put in to do the work. So it was just talking through things and whatever because of time difference. So she would get home and then I would already be home. And because it's either 3 or 4 hours. I was either 3 or 4 hours ahead because
Good.
we do daylight savings time in the
Mhm.
UK. Um, So then I would be home by the time she gets home. So then I would be able to debrief on school, and then I'd get the activity, like the plan for what she's going to do for the evening and that kind of thing. So that was actually quite huge.
Wow.
Um, and the good thing was also she was developing her independence at the time, so she was able to, um, I guess, understand fully what was happening, and be supportive of it. She wasn't fearful at all.
Yeah.
And she did a good job, to be fair. She did a really fantastic job. She passed everything.
Oh,
She didn't
wow.
have a problem at all. And do you know, coming back to that point that I mentioned about, um, like when my eldest say, "Oh, mommy, I didn't know that." She did not. She said, "I never felt like you guys were having a hard time with balancing stuff." I was like,
Whoa.
whoa, that
Okay.
was huge for me.
Okay. I want to know, how did you do that?
I listen, she's such a gem. I really don't know. She's like, I didn't realize, I didn't think that you guys were having a hard time. And I was like, that just blew my mind because I was like, wow, we must have done a really good job with supporting her and making her feel, um, empowered to be independent and, just, yeah, enjoying her teenage, that she didn't realize that we were having such a hard time having to juggle, the work pressure, the picking up, the balancing the homework, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was just immense for me.
Wow.
Um, so, and I think the bottom line is, if it did not impact them negatively. And I think that was the thing that I was most fearful of.
Yeah.
Would they be very sad, or we had to do more traveling, um, but I guess in a way that was good too, because obviously for different things I would have to fly back and so on and so forth, depending on the time and the leave that I got and the timing of everything. But it worked out. It worked out, and it was just for a short time. So yeah, we were able to navigate that positively in so many different ways. So I just thank God for that every day.
Yeah. That took a huge leap of faith because you didn't know how that was going to end up for
No.
yourself as a mom, for your family, and then for your oldest daughter. Like there was a lot on, yeah, at risk there.
Especially when you have schools to consider, because
Yeah.
if your child changes school and they're not happy, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things that was the litmus test for me. How
Oh,
was my, how were they enjoying school? And
yeah.
they really, really, especially the youngest one, really enjoyed school. And so I was like, okay, that's fine then, because if they spend so much time in school, and if they're
Yeah.
having an awful time, then that's a huge deal. It
Yeah.
will affect everything,
Thing. Yeah.
and she really, especially the younger one, really loved school. And she made some really good friends that she has still,
Yeah.
really positive influences on each other. They enjoyed, fun activities. It was just such a blessed experience for them to have gone at the time when they did. Because
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing as well, timing. Sometimes, if you did something this time versus that time, you could have a different, um, outcome. But yeah, the timing also worked out perfectly. So they had to finish the school year, and then they transitioned afterwards. So yeah, so that was
Wow.
huge.
Could you have even timed it even better than that? Like, did you know that you like because if you talk about
Mm-hmm.
timing, right? Like as a mom, I'm thinking about we always think about like, is this the best time?
Mm-hmm.
Like how yeah.
Hmm. So I think, do you know what? Sometimes when I do things, I don't think all the way to the end, or the potential end. I think probably that's one of the things that That happens when you take risks or leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, do you know what? I can only think about this part, and some of it
Yes.
may not be in my control. Okay, I
No.
know I need to do A, B, and C, but who knows? So it was literally, I mean, I did not have all of it figured out, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Um, and some of it fell into place, really.
That's the faith.
Um,
That's the faith right there.
yeah, and I definitely would owe that to the faith because some of it I could not have. Listen, moving to a new place, you will know some things early,
Yeah.
and some things you will just not know until you're in the position.
Yeah.
And some parts of it was I found out as I was involved in the situation. The schooling, what was required, how do you navigate the registration, how do you navigate the traveling system to and from school. It was very different because here in the UK, you live somewhere quite often, let's say junior school, for Americans, primary school
Mhm.
for British. You would literally just have them run down to their school or walk to their school, or you drop them on the way to school or
Mhm.
something like that. You
Mhm.
could do carpool, you could with a footmobile kind of thing. Oh, are you going down? Go with that parent, your neighbor, or something like that. This was
Mhm.
something completely different. So really, some of it I really didn't understand fully until afterwards.
Yeah.
Then I was able to acknowledge.
I love that. I really love your honesty, Giselle. I really do because I'm like, I think there's a lot, there's some of us moms who would like to know from A to Z, right? Before we make a decision. And what I'm hearing is like, you can know A, B, C, D, and then just use that leap of faith, that faith to trust that for the rest of it, it will work out.
It
Or
will
how
work
so
out.
just trusting. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that because that just like gives us a lot of more freedom and grace for ourselves.
And yeah, yeah. And I mean, listen, not everybody is the same. Some
Yeah.
people would have to know everything and, turn every stone and every, knock on every door to find out every single nitty-gritty. But yeah, I just had faith and it worked out.
Yeah.
But and I guess but the really important point though is that as a mom, I had to make sure that I did everything within my power to make sure that the things I didn't know, I found out.
Mhm.
And if I needed to do something to get to point B, then I made sure I made that happen. And I
Mm,
think that's a very important one because you know there was a fair bit of navigation because as I said, when you go to a new place, you really don't understand all the nuances that are associated with how you navigate the work situation because it's a totally different environment.
yeah.
You don't know who you're going to be working with. Um, yeah, the positions are different. How I transitioned from where I was to where I went to was different. So I had to navigate all of that and figure out, okay, this is a new system. How does this system work? And what
Yeah.
gets me from point A to point B? And so on and so forth. So, but I really had to be intentional
Mm,
with that part. So I had to make sure that I did my part to the fullest extent
yeah.
to make sure I was able to then have them coming back to my daughter's comment that she didn't realize we were having a challenge. I wanted them to feel that this was a smooth transition because quite
Yeah.
often, let's say I'm a mom of a baby, for
Mhm.
example. If
Mhm.
I'm an anxious mom, my child is going to pick that up and they're going to be anxious.
Mm,
And I think the same goes for kindergarten,
yeah.
adults, whatever,
Yes.
and tying that modeling into it again. If
Yeah.
if they are feeling a certain level of anxiety from you as a parent,
Yeah.
then they are also going to exhibit that. So I think it was about ensuring that I had confidence in the process,
Mm.
um, and I was able to exhibit that um, as we were going through this transition. So then they just felt, okay, it's fine. I'll be
Yeah.
fine, kind
I
of thing.
yeah. That's how you did it. It's like you were, I see this theme here in this conversation. It really is about intentionality, like intentionality about your words, intentionality about modeling, intentionality about how you navigate through your decisions that you've made. And yeah, it's like when you are acting or being with
Mhm.
intentionality, whatever that is for you, right? Others feel that your kids
Mhm.
experience that. So I love that, and I love how I'm like, ooh, those are words of wisdom that are awesome. But I'm like, are there any other lasting words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience? Because I was like, that was really good. Yeah, is there any other lasting words of wisdom that you would like to share in addition to what you just shared? Because I was like, man, that was really good.
So, as I said, one of the very most valuable core strength that I leverage for everything is my faith. And one of those is prayer. And as I said, I don't often know the answers. And I think because of prayer, and there's a verse that I always reflect on, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it, except the Lord um, watcheth, the watchman waiteth, but in vain. Don't,
Mm,
it's not exactly quoted, but something like that. So I
mhm.
just feel like having that higher power where I can defer some of the unknowingness, for want of
Mhm.
a better word, too,
Yeah.
it gives me more time to do the things that I have control over.
Mm,
And I just feel like having that overarching superpower to govern my life helps me to feel more energized, as I said, to do the things that I can control.
yeah.
Because I'm sure you've probably heard about the circle of influence, or,
Mhm.
you know, and to be fair, sometimes I guess the challenge for me is sometimes taking on too much and then realizing, this is actually heavy. I can't
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah.
I can't manage. And,
Yeah.
you know, also having that realization that, okay, it's heavy for me. What's happening with somebody else if I should go and try to talk to them about that? And sometimes you can talk to your friends, but sometimes they too are having a heavy load or a heavy weight of something.
Yeah.
So then I think just having that superpower
Mhm.
is how I would describe it, where I can commune with, and that's kind of my personal experience, where I can have that quiet time where I can feel that, okay, um, I can have peace in this situation because, I can have self-control in this situation because,
'Cause yeah.
um, I can be glad and rejoice in this situation because. So I
Mhm.
think that is kind of my reassurance and assurance as I go through and navigate um, just parenthood, because I was talking to a parent today and she said it's hard. And I said, I know it's really hard. But one of the things I've realized as I've gone along is we have to choose our battles. We can't
Mhm.
always be fighting with our kids, and they have to feel that we're in their corner.
Mm.
Um, because if they don't feel that, coming back to, you can't just say it, they
Yeah.
have to feel it.
Feel it.
And if they don't feel that, then
Mhm.
that's a problem.
Mm.
because they have to navigate so much. I
Yeah.
mean, we see they're bombarded with style, fashion, peer pressure,
Yeah.
clothes to wear. How do they look? How do they speak? Do they have cool friends? And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have to then choose, okay, am I going to add to that?
Uh,
Or am I going to be their safe place with those boundaries? Because
yeah.
I can't get it. So I just feel like having, this relationship with Christ gives me that, where I am, okay, are you going to do that yourself? Or are you going to maintain your boundary? And your boundary is do what's in your control and
Roll.
leave the rest to me.
I love that. I love that because you feel held and supported, right?
Yes,
Beyond
yes,
yourself.
yes. I like that.
Yes. You feel
Yeah,
held and supported beyond yourself. Yeah, I love how you just really like laid that out. It's like you can do what's within your control and leave the rest to your superpower, whatever you
yeah,
want to call it, right? If you call it God,
yeah,
you want to, but I love
yeah,
that, right? I'm a firm believer in that as well. Is like, yeah,
yeah,
it is a superpower, right? It is a
yeah,
superpower
for
to
sure.
feel like you are held and supported so that you can be the best version of yourself as a mom, and as a person. I love that. I love that. Another golden nugget of wisdom there, Giselle. You gave us two. That was awesome. Well, as we wrap up our conversation here, we want to wrap up with a fun game here called Mom Moments in a Minute. So you ready?
Ooh,
Are you ready? All right.
okay,
So
let's go.
let's go. There's 3 questions. So here's the first question. To have a moment of peace and quiet to yourself, which place would you choose out of these 4 choices? Bathroom, the car, the bedroom, or the closet?
Okay, if I really wanted peace, it would be the car.
Car. Okay. All right. I love that. You're like, if I really wanted peace, it would be the car. 2 is,
I would be able to get away.
yeah, I love it. Second question. What's your favorite thing to do with your kids?
We love walks. We love outdoors. So anything outdoors, whether it's going to a new city and walking around, whether it's doing a leisurely walk, not a climb, because the youngest one would never copy into that. And then the other thing is food. Everybody loves food, so we share food.
I love it.
That's a big thing, yeah.
I love it. And last question.
Sorry, I chose
No,
two.
you chose 2. Oh, you said bonus. Bonus. Third question. To relax, what would you choose out of these 5 choices? A spa, hike, take a nap, read, or do crafts?
I love naps.
Naps.
Yeah, I love naps.
You're my type of person. I love naps too. Naps in the car.
Yes, I love naps. And I always have a rule in my house. So I would be famous for coming home from work and literally be so tired that I cannot move a muscle. And I would just curl up in the couch. And the one rule is do not put a blanket on me. Because, because what happens is if a blanket goes on me, then I sleep too far. And then I wake up not quite feeling right. But when I start falling deeper into sleep, then I start getting cold. And then I wake up. Then the nap is over.
Oh, thanks for that trick. Because I tend to nap for like 4 hours. And my husband's like, that's not a nap.
That is not a nap, Jasmine. That's not a nap.
But that's
I like them.
Okay, now I'm going to use your trick, Gissel. I was just sleep without a blanket because that is
without a blanket.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And even if they try to cover me, I wake up and I see them. I'm like, no blanket.
No,
And I wake up. It's a joke. It's so funny now.
that is hilarious. That is hilarious.
I know.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. If people want to connect with you because they just loved your energy and just, this conversation, how can they connect with you?
So I think the only connection point I have at the moment is LinkedIn, because I'm not on any of the socials at the moment.
Yeah.
Who knows? What will come later? But for now, it's just LinkedIn.
All right. And so I will include Gissel's LinkedIn link in the show notes. And thank you so much again, Gissel, for just being on the show today and sharing with us your story and so many nuggets of words of wisdom. So thank you so much for being here and just, sharing that with us, your energy and your vibe. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jocelyn. All the best. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty, moms, I hope you enjoyed and feel empowered and seen from today's conversation. Our mission here on the podcast is to amplify the stories of all moms so that you can be seen, heard, and supported in your motherhood journey, regardless of whether you're balancing motherhood with an external career or choosing to dedicate yourself fully to motherhood. And we would appreciate your support because your support matters. And here are 3 ways to support the mission of the podcast. First, you can leave a rating on Apple Podcasts so more moms can discover this podcast. You can select a star rating by scrolling down on the Empowered Working Mom Revolution show page in the Apple Podcasts app. 2, you can write a review on Apple Podcasts so more moms can find a place of solace, comfort, and belonging through this podcast. You can do this by scrolling down on the Empowered Working Mom Revolution show page in the Apple Podcasts app and tap Write a Review. And lastly, make a one-time donation to the podcast for as little as $7 or whatever amount feels best for you. You can click the link in the show notes to make a donation. We appreciate your support, and thanks again for listening in and joining me here on the podcast. I look forward to sharing with you another inspiring mom moment story next week. So until next Wednesday, moms, have a great day.